Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette. We're so glad you're with us to stay curious today, which is July 26, 2024. 6 months from now, Santa will be good or bad to you there, as we got my surfing Santa here to remind you of the Christmas in July festivities going on this weekend. I'm sure wherever you live, and hope you're going to have a wonderful weekend. We got quite a mashup today here on Space News, and also, as I realize, we've got 3 or 4 of our buddies out there that support our program involved either in photography or a little shout out today. So I hope that you all enjoy Stay Curious today. We've had a great week, and go back and look at over 700 episodes, as this is episode 1098 that Marty, Winkel, and I have put together since the pandemic hit us in March 2020. Marty's cozy in the chair looking over our intern Logan Cope here, who's done a great job almost 2 months here learning how to do our Streamlabs program, and very grateful for Eastern Florida State College and your teachers there, Logan, for letting you do this. So hope that gets you some extra credit, bragging about you and them here. But no, you've done a great job, and we appreciate, we need more talent in this museum volunteer-wise to help us go to the next level. Here is our beautiful outdoors of the American Space Museum with the Saturn V rocket and an SLS type rocket in the front. We're open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 5 o'clock. And as a nonprofit in Florida, as so many nonprofits around the country, we've just been decimated by losing some grants. We lost a good $50,000 grant a year by a stroke of the pen of the Florida governor. And we also lost another 50 grand in advertising money that went to the lifeguards, much needed money for hiring lifeguards, but a lot of nonprofit money went to them instead of where it had been going for years, and that was the Brevard County Commissioners that did that. And probably whether it's any political party, we don't care. These things are happening all over as everybody's kind of rethinking how they give money, and everybody's got their hand out. I'll give you something if you give me something back. So we appreciate everybody that contributes to the American Space Museum. $10, $20, or $200. We got the family microphone from the UCAC family up in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. We're going to talk about them. You all give so much in so many ways, and but we need to reach out to some of them other corporate sponsors in a big way. There's Winston Scott saying contribute this way on YouTube, not on the live YouTube that you're watching, but go back to yesterday's show and there's a thanks button with a $. That's where they have this scale. Just easy to pop in what you want to generously give us, and it'll come right out of your PayPal or whatever function you use there. Well, this is certainly, where is my hat? As I'm looking back here, here's my hat. Here's the only hat I can find right now. Okay, Dave Stangy. But I got it's back here somewhere. Oh, here it is. All right, I'll replace this, my alma mater there, with a hat that deserves the 3 astronauts that I'm going to talk about here. And the first one, we got 3 astronauts that have birthdays today. And this is Bill Shepard, who's 75. We've got Bill MacArthur, who's 71, I believe, and Dan Burbank, all former ISS commanders of our wonderful space station. 2 Bills are born today, July 26th, and Dan Burbank is on Saturday, so we'll cover his birthday today. And there's Bill Shepard. Happy 75th birthday to this Navy captain and Navy SEAL Bill Shepard. And 74 years old today for MacArthur. We'll show his picture in a minute. Bill Shepard, born in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, July 26, 1949. He's a Navy SEAL in 4 space flights, STS-27, in 1988, STS-41 in 1990, 52 and 92, and then he rode a Soyuz spacecraft. That's why he's in this Sokol suit there, to command the first expedition of the International Space Station in October 2000. So we put pictures of Bill up all the time with that Expedition 1 crew and his 2 Russian mates. It was just literally a school bus in space at the time that they were living in. And of course, it's expanded now to about 7 or 8 school buses, volume-wise in there. So hope he's having a great day. By the way, he is featured, Marty, at the Navy SEAL Museum just south of here in Fort
Stewart?
No, not Fort Stewart. What's south of here before Fort? Not Fort Patrick.
Fort
Pierce. Fort Pierce, down in that area, before you get to Palm Beach and the big, fancy sections of homes down there. But yeah, I'm going to go to that Navy SEAL Museum. A couple people have talked about it. So, and there's a display there to him.
Let's do some weekend.
Yeah, let's go some weekend. All right, love that. Take a road trip with Marty. And there's Bill MacArthur, kind of a fuzzy picture of him, though, but very patriotic guy. Bill MacArthur was born in Laurinburg, North Carolina. And I guess he's from West Point, an Army guy. And Colonel, he's got 4 flights, STS-58, 1993. Then he went to the Mir Space Station in STS-74 in 1995 and 1992. To the ISS, and then he's also flew a Soyuz spacecraft as commander of Expedition 12 from 2005 to 2006. This was the only way we're going to get to the space station because of the Columbia tragedy, and here's an astronaut that took the Russian Soyuz up to be commander of Expedition 12. Shepard's got 160 days in space, MacArthur 225, and he's got 2 spacewalks. And all this crew here can say he's quite a great guy, Marty. You've met him many more times than I have because you get out there and a little more than me. Get out where? Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex, where astronauts like Bill MacArthur every day tell their story twice, free to the public, and then we'll take a picture or sign anything, not anything, but anything within reason, here at out there. Twice a day. So there we got Marty and Connie McDaniel there, 2 ace volunteers right there, and you've got Gary. Gary's last name is Gary Folsom, and Tammy Miller. Haven't seen Tammy in a while. Is she in Indiana area?
She is. Yeah.
She's back in the Midwest while the weather's good. So we love talking to these guys, getting to know them. A few of them have become our friends, and we're looking forward to some of them doing some book signings and such here at the American Space Museum. So happy birthday, Bill MacArthur. We salute you and all that you've done for space. Dan Burbank is quite an interesting guy. The second Coast Guard astronaut to go to space, okay? Dan, and who is the first one, you ask? You know?
Bruce Melnick.
Bruce Melnick, Marty says. Exactly right. Our friend Bruce, he was over the astronaut encounter at Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex, taking over for John McBride, and now Winston Scott's doing it. Bruce was just kind of a intern there for a while. Burbank is a guitarist and lead singer for the all-astronaut band MarQ. Okay. There he is, right there. Stroking some chords there. We're going to get them to play at a Shuttle Fest one year. We just have to. There he is on the International Space Station working out. He flew twice, STS-106, and then 115 in 2006, again on a Soyuz spacecraft. All 3 birthday boys had experience on that Soyuz spacecraft. And he was commander of Expedition 30 in 2012. 188 days in space, and he's got 1 EVA to his credit, extravehicular activity. So then he went to be a professor of engineering for the Coast Guard. So just two Coast Guard astronauts, and we'd love to get to know Dan Burbank someday there. So there's our birthday boys. And let's see. So where do we go next? Okay, we're going to a special little insert here where our good friend Tom Usiak, he may not be watching because I talked to him on the phone yesterday, and he's vacationing with his wife Vicky and their grandkids on the Atlantic coast. But brother Mark Usiak also is his photography partner, and Tom, on the morning of July 26, 1971, watched the launch for the first time as a young reporter for his college newspaper, The Snapper. I forget the name of the college there. Do you see what that says there on the paper up there in the big screen, Logan? MSC's the initials.
Got blurry.
Middlesboro State College. Millersville, I'm sorry. It marked the first time that Tom Usiak, handsome guy up there in the picture, went to cover accredited newsman. He thought it was a one and done thing for him at age 19 from Millersville State College. And here he and his brother Tom, with another crew of fine fellows, photographed more than 70 launches, as well as many uncrewed launches at Kennedy Space Center or Wallops Island, Virginia. Here are those pictures that Tommy took in 1971, okay? A long, long time ago, 53 years ago, the behemoth of the Saturn V rocket. We'll cover the astronauts on that in a minute. I love how Marty, it's already moving away from the tower. You can see how it's but Marty, you saw this one, and like all of them, you said they're very laborious to watch getting off the pad. You just never thought it was going to leave the tower, whereas the space shuttle, it pops off there in about 3 seconds. Great shot, Tom. Beautiful shot there of something we will ever see again, a Saturn V rocket launched. And we're going to see some big rockets launched, like Elon Musk's Starship and big booster. But this is quite something in 1971. And then Tom, several years later, got to photograph the launch of the second crew to Skylab, our orbiting laboratory, in 1974. I think it was July 28th is when this happened. That's called the milk stool, where they put a Saturn 1B and raised it up to where the Saturn V was, with the crew white room and so forth, so they didn't have to move all of the connections for the launch umbilical tower, aka LUT. Beautiful shot there, and that Tom took again on film. All right, and here we go. Where I'm going, there's a close up of the cabin up there, and didn't have. I didn't feature the astronauts on this. I guess I got some of that mixed up in here, but that's okay. We'll feature that later in the week. The Skylab, the second crew of led by Alan Bean and our friend Jack
Lausman?
Who?
Jack Lausman?
Lausman, Jack Lausman. And then it was Owen Garriott, I think, up there with him, the third one. It's Friday, so I'm allowed a few senior moments here as we're dressed for casual Friday today. Wanted to brag to my buddies, the Usiak brothers. I never would have met them had it not been for this American Space Museum. They are featured in Quest magazine that I've made a copy off of, the Xerox there at the bottom. Space photographers. Well, they're spacey, all right. They're more like freelance space industry photographers, but Quest is a very important magazine to be in. It's the definitive journal, so to speak, of space history. And Emily Carney wrote the story in this. Emily, Space Hipster #1. So, and a friend here at our American Space Museum. So kudos to you guys. I can't wait to go get a copy of Quest online, just go to Quest, the history of Spaceflight Quarterly. So go to spacehistory101.com. All right. They have a nonprofit much like ours that preserves history, particularly the written word and things like that. So love bragging about my USIAC brothers there. We've had a lot of fun together, and they have had a rich career photographing everything that's on a rocket. So, okay, so I go from there to these boys. Let's go back to Apollo 15, and only 6 lunar landings. I'm going to talk about them. I always do on Stay Curious. Marty Winkel, our co-producer here, worked on the lunar modules 55 years ago. But this one had the first lunar rover in it, the first car, and there's the astronauts with their Corvettes that they leased for $1 from Jim Rothman, Indy 500 winner, and that was a very good, smart PR move back in the 60s. So they had the racing stripe on them, and a lot of fun with that. David Scott, Al Warden, and Jim Irwin were the 3 astronauts. David Scott was an experienced Gemini pilot. He was with Neil Armstrong in that quick emergency spinning disaster after they docked with the Agena rocket, Gemini 8. Then he was on Apollo 9, the important all tests of the lunar module in Earth orbit. And then of course went to the moon on Apollo 15 as the commander. That's why he's got the red stripes on his arms and legs, so they could tell him apart from Jim Irwin, who walked on the moon. Jim Irwin died of a heart attack way too early. He was like 59 years old or something. It's been almost over 20 years ago. Al Warden died about 3 years ago during the COVID pandemic. I got to meet him a few months before he passed away. He seemed in great health. They're holding the sub-satellite, they called it, that was ejected out of the payload bay of the Apollo 15 command module by Warden. All right, and it orbited the moon collecting data on there. So Uncle Al, as they called him, was a very beloved astronaut and was a great fixture at some of the public events like Space Fest out in Arizona. So this is his one and done mission where he did a deep spacewalk also. Always like reminding you young folk out there, this is our spaceship. Separating as the lunar module descends down to the moon about 10 miles above it at the time, as the command module really dipped down there to let them go. I don't think it was that low, but it was pretty low. Not very Star Wars or Star Trekky looking there, just the bare bones, and weight was always the consideration. And there is lunar module number 9 that was going to be the spacecraft for Apollo 15, but they decided to put the lunar rover in it. And this bottom half, the descent stage, that becomes the platform for the top of it when it lifts off, the ascent stage. The descent stage wasn't built to have room for the rover in it. It was on, is that the panel the rover would have been in, Marty? On this side here, quad 4. And there's 4 quadrants, flat panels around the lunar module, and you go to number 1's on the left. And so we showed pictures last Friday where Marty talked about the lunar module, that they put this down on the ground. And boy, was that popular, and we appreciate you all watching that. So we will feature that again when we talk about Apollo 15 landing on the moon. July 30th is the moon landing date. And now we've got lots of time next week to talk about it. It was at a very serious incline, which gave him a hard time, not a real hard time, but it was a little challenging to get the rover out of there. And here is where they landed over these Hadley Mountains. This is one of the most gorgeous landing spots ever. They landed above me here is a collapsed lava tube that looks like a river, but lava flowed in it, and then it collapsed down from some volcanoes nearby. And then this is a mountaintop, and these are the landing site right there in the center, and they went 3 different excursions on 3 different days, driving over 20 miles on the first rover vehicle on the moon. And I celebrate that with our friend Doug Forrest. Doug saying, hey, that's my picture. Yeah, it is, Doug. And he is an excellent pencil artist. He's an artist of many mediums, but made it a little smaller there so you get the impact there that he's showing David Scott looking at Jim Irwin as the rover is sliding a little bit on an incline. And then we'll show you next week where Doug Forrest turned the tables on this image and has created a photograph or a work of art with his pencils of Irwin looking up at Scott on this picture. So, but we'll have lots of time to talk about lunacy and the lunar 15, the 15 Apollo 15, the fourth landing in our auspicious program there. So, well, now I wanted to turn our tables here to something that I love talking about, and that is Bob Smeat. Okay, Bob Smeat, what are you talking about? Well, we have Bob Smeat in the building, and let me show you him real quick. This is the Smeat program, so important to Skylab, okay? And there is Bob Smeat. What are you looking at there? You're looking at Bob Crippen's clothes that he wore during a 56-day Skylab medical experiment altitude test. Skylab medical experiment altitude test called Smeat. They embarked on this. I believe this was up at the facility off of Sandusky, Ohio there, the research center up there. But on July 26, 1972, all right, these 3 astronauts, Bob Crippen on the left, Dr. William Thornton in the center, and Carol Bobko on the right, embarked on a critical Skylab mission that never even left the ground. And it was called Smeat. 10 months before the first Skylab crew launched, okay? That they're showing the bicycle that was on there that was going to be up at so they went through everything on the ground, pressurized inside, as if they were on a 56-day mission on Skylab. Now, the first Skylab mission was only 28 days. Then the one launched, they did this in 1972, so the one launched 2 years later after they were doing this Smeat test, was 56 days. And then the final one was 84 days. Bob Coase passed away, so has Thornton. Thornton, very important to the medical community in space. In fact, he came up with the exercise regime and designed the bicycle treadmill that they were going to use and stuff like that. Well, in preparation for the upcoming Skylab Orbital Workshop, they conducted an altitude chamber test at the Manned Spacecraft Center, now Johnson Space Center in Houston. It served as a baseline for medical data on the crew and test some of the experiment hardware. And let's go forward with that there, as we're looking at Bob Smeat there. It was to evaluate equipment and procedures proposed to use during Skylab. They wanted a psychological profile of the crew members confined, not able to get out of this for 56 days. They were subjected to 1/3 barometric pressure on Earth, 70% oxygen level. We breathe 30% oxygen level on Earth. Closed circuit TV provided views of activities inside the chamber. So I believe I've seen parts of that Smeat chamber that they replicated there at Houston at the public facility there. So now you know all about Bob Smeat, and you've met him. And Bob Crippen is 87 years old, and talked to him about a year ago on the phone. And he was at the Hall of Fame induction, wasn't he? And everybody said, I didn't see that. Did you meet him? See him?
Yeah.
Everybody says he's looking good. everybody said he looked good, and he gave a little presentation and all that stuff. So, but Bob Crippen, one of the heroes of the shuttle program, he and John Young doing the first experiment test in 1981. Well, carrying on here with today, we've got some space history. The shuttles of July winding down in STS-114. Right there, launched July 26, 2005. 6 years before that, in STS-93, Eileen Collins was the commander of her first mission. It was the Gamma Ray Observatory that almost didn't make it to space when an engine went out, the only time that happened. But it was an abort to orbit, and everything was fine. And that observatory still is providing data X-rays. That's right, looking at the world, the universe, like you would look through an X-ray here on Earth and see the bare bones of what's going on in our universe, so to speak. But 114, a very unique patch. Did I pull that patch up? Yeah, I did. So you know I'm going to talk about it here. So we'll talk about the art on that in just a minute after we brag about the photographs by another friend of our museum, Carlton Bailey. CB's got a 4-panel launch of the return to flight after the Columbia disaster in January 2003. So it took us 2.5 years to return to flight here in July 2005. But gorgeous views there and beautifully framed. That's a professional photographer there using that palm tree to add a little foreground accent to the photograph. And there's the we love showing this picture I see every day 2 or 3 times outside of our conference center. There you've got the crew led by Eileen Collins on the right. You've got James Vegas Kelly, his second and last flight. This was Eileen's fourth and last flight. Have I got a picture of the crew in here? I don't. So I'm going to... Mission specialist is Soichi Noguchi of Japan, his first of 3. He's still active. There he is behind her. Stephen Robinson, third of 4 space flights. Andy Thomas, fourth and last flight. Wendy Lawrence, her fourth and last flight. We've seen Wendy many times at the Space Center. We loved her to death. And Charles Camardia, his only space flight. He's born in New York City. It delivered supplies to the International Space Station. However, the major focus was testing and evaluating new spaceflight safety techniques, which included new inspection and repair techniques. Okay, and during the spacewalks, they actually were going to try to glue shuttles together in the payload bay and such to see if they could do stuff like that. And they used an orbital boom sensor system, a set of instruments on a 50-foot extension of the Canada arm to see what was going on. We've got Eileen Collins' handprints. I had them, showed them to you yesterday. Could have saved a lot of strain there, Marty, by showing that picture yesterday. But we're so proud. I've met her several times. She's really a wonderful person and loves to talk about space. So here is the thing there. Yep, Steve says I was thinking of Steve Yoakum's up in Lake County Spaceport in Illinois says I was thinking of Plumbrook up in Sandusky, Ohio. Thank you. That's part of the Lewis, now Glenn Research Center. And let me see who's watching here today. Got Steve watching, Mark UCX watching, Doug Forrest. We're going to talk Carlton Bailey about SpaceX planning a launch tonight. We're going to look forward to that about 12:15 or something like that. Gary Gerald, just saw Gary in the building, and his wife Donnie and her brother Gary were here. He didn't have time to stop by, but he said when he comes back in a couple of weeks, maybe we'll get him talking agriculture and GPS satellites, which he did before. Hi, Dean Babcock and Tom Celentano. Fox McLeod. Thank you, Fox, for watching. He's watching the opening ceremonies at the Summer Olympics in Paris. Uh-oh. That's going to hurt our ratings big time. Doug Forrest, Oh, Doug's been to the Seal Museum. All right, there in Fort Pierce, definitely worth it. Dan Burbank, a Connecticut native, did not know that. Tom Celentano. What three states do not have an astronaut? What three states do not have an astronaut? Connecticut does, and his name's Doug Burbank. All right. So we'll see who chimes in on that. Robert Law's watching with his evening Friday night cocktail in Dundee, Scotland. Stunning photos. Neil 1030's talking about both of you guys' photos, but probably Tom's Apollo launch photos are really good. And Tom Celentano said he met all Apollo 15 astronauts. Al Warden several times. Very personable man. That's an understatement. He sure is. And so thank you all for chiming in there. William Whiting. Hello, William. Stay tuned. I got a surprise for you, buddy. We miss you down here at the Space Coast, but I think I'd rather be up in Michigan with their humidity than ours right now. It's just been a cooker down here. So the three states without astronauts. 1, Nevada. 2, Wyoming. And 3, it borders Connecticut, I think. Vermont. All right. The lower border there?
Southern border.
Yep. All right. Vermont. So we need a Nevada, Vermont, and Wyoming astronaut. Otherwise, our stars and stripes are all represented.
No, it doesn't. It borders Massachusetts.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Marty's giving me a geography lesson here. So, so, all right. Let's get to the logo here. And get my mission book out. And let's go to 114. Just amazing. I mean, that shows you right there that NASA has no prejudice to sex, religion, color, any of that stuff. Eileen Collins was the best qualified to fly this mission, okay? And I've said it over and over. If 2 women are the best qualified to go to the moon, let them land on the moon, all right? But we do love the inclusiveness of NASA. The STS-114 patch signifies the Space Shuttle return to flight and honors the memory of the STS-107 Columbia crew. The blue Space Shuttle rises above Earth's horizon, includes the Columbia constellation of 7 stars, echoing the STS-107 patch and commemorating the 7 members of that mission. And indeed, the 107 patch is the only patch that's the outline of a space shuttle. At 135 missions, you think someone else would have wanted to copy that beforehand. But the 114 crew will carry the memory of their friends on Columbia and their legacy back into Earth orbit. The dominant design element of the patch is the planet Earth, which represents the unity and dedication of the many people whose efforts allow the space shuttle to fly a return to flight mission. Against the background of the Earth at night, the blue orbit represents the ISS and the EVA crew members named on the orbit. All 3 of those astronauts did important spacewalks. The red sun on the orbit signifies the contributions of the Japanese Space Agency to the mission and the ISS program. The multicolored space shuttle plume represents the broad spectrum of challenges for this mission, including space shuttle inspection and repair experiments and the resupply of the International Space Station. So it was a great mission up there, about 10 days. Where's my other cheat sheet on it? But that's okay. Landed August 9th. And once again, but it had a little anomaly or 2 on it. And there is another launch panorama of STS-114. One of the classic shots of the shuttle era is photographed it from this pad camera. It had a bird on the ET nose cone. Of course, it wasn't going sideways, but a bird impacted the nose cone just as it was clearing the tower. And this is the type of cameras that get that type of picture there. Carlton was covering 114 for Boeing. And he hired Mark and Tom to help him. So, and proud Connecticut resident Tom Celentano. Wow, there's a lot of astronauts from Connecticut. Rick Mastraccio, Woody Spring, Dan Barry, Pierre Thowett, Kate Rubens, also born in Connecticut. Wow, some good astronaut water there, Tom. How so thank you for contributing that. Once it got up there, we used our beautiful. Logan chose this as our beautiful green screen backdrop there. If you notice, right under here, you see a little white spot. That was a gap filler that was protruding. And they had to send Robinson out there on a spacewalk to get it. And that was kind of hair-raising, all right? They also had that long Canadian arm attachment so that they could go and look underneath and make sure that there was no damage, okay, which there was. There was foam that came off the ET again. Didn't hit the wing like it did on Columbia, about right in here. But because of that, the orbiter was grounded for another year until the July 4th launch of STS-121, completely out of sequence. STS-121 and then STS-115 flew next. There was a famous maneuver now where the orbiter completely did a somersault in front of the International Space Station windows. The cupola wasn't up there yet. That came later with STS-130. So, but everyone taken on the International Space Station, several astronauts designated to take telephoto photos and look for any damage. Okay, we could not do that on Columbia. Those of you that don't know, because Columbia did not go to the International Space Station. It was the next to the last mission not to go there. Hubble telescope, the final upgrade, was the other one. So it was in a different orbit and couldn't even get up to the International Space Station if it wanted to. But you know what, Marty, we talked about the other day, yes, why in the world didn't NASA continue this space age drone, if you will? This is Winston Scott on STS-72 deploying a beach ball sized satellite that had cameras on it, and nitrous gas is, I think, what he told us the other day, allowed it to maneuver, and not exactly who maneuvered it, Houston or astronauts in the shuttle, but this was a drone that was being experimented on, and Winston Scott said that it was not continued because of money. And you're going to see Winston Scott and astronaut Roger Crouch and Roger's wife Ann on a recorded episode next week on Stay Curious. We had a dropout anomalies, either something in the building stopped the recording, and we had a couple starts to start up. So our IT guy, Bruce Jacobs, is going to have to splice that together. Thank you, Bruce, for all you do. But so Marty, just one of those things scratches your head and goes, why didn't they continue this or even bring it back? Why won't this consider to say, hey, we got this on the shelf here in the mothballs. Why don't we see if we can use it to go around every orbiter and take pictures and like a drone? So maybe it is out there. They just didn't want to use it for some reason. I don't know. So you got a comment, Marty?
Just my own personal feelings.
Yeah. Well, you want to get on the UCAC microphone, and you know more about it than I do. Just a guy in the nickel seats here.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's one of those things. I think that NASA says we have not had problems before like this. So why do we need this drone? Mm-hmm. And dollars.
Yeah, that was 72. So 107 was about 30 missions later. Without anomalies, and so yeah, but that, you know, the manned maneuvering units are kind of outdated now. They don't have those anymore. They've got the safer system on every EVA backpack that could get them back. Tethered satellites is another thing. They proved on the last mission of the month, STS-46, that a tethered satellite would generate electricity, and I thought we'd have a few of those hanging off the International Space Station just to bring that technology up to a new level. But we didn't. So there was the gap filler protruding, like I told you. They had to go out there and get it with there it is. This is between the tiles, the 30,000 tiles. They put this in between there. Terry White told us it's for cushioning and some aerodynamics. They couldn't land with this like that because I thought it would just burn off. And Terry said, well, that's the whole problem. The sensitivity coming through the atmosphere of this spaceship could make it roll or something serious like that. Just the difference of profile of that flame coming off as it burned up. Better safe than sorry. But Terry talked a lot about that. And then I think Steve Robinson, when they landed on August 9th, I believe it was, on the runway, he handed Terry the gap filler right here. And Terry had it on his desk. Terry White, our orbital processing facility chief, the garage mechanic of the shuttle, so to speak. He'll be on in August. So, but we've talked about the gap filler before, and he eventually gave it back so it could go to the Smithsonian. There is Robinson on an EVA on that arm there. So, well, coming to a tail end here of our 1098th episode of Stay Curious. Thank you, Logan, for getting everybody in there today. Dave Stangy's watching today. Happy Friday to you, Dave. Giving a shout out to everybody that you listed there. We're so appreciative that you take your time to watch. And we're grateful for the numbers we have, and our numbers are going up. We love talking about, don't forget about it over the weekend. How many humans orbiting Earth? How many Earthlings have escaped this Earth for a while? Well, 12, 9 on the space station. 3 Chinese are orbiting down here in their Tiangong Heavenly Palace. They've been up for about 2 months, as has Tracy Dyson, adding to her 150 days in space. Of course, the Crew Dragon group over there been up about 3 months now. They'll be coming back in September, which is when their 6-month tour of duty ends. All 3 superpowers in space. 3 Chinese, 3 Russians, 6 American. Of those 6 American, 3 are women. And Sonny Williams above my head and Butch Wilmer there, having the time of their life, an 8-day mission now stretched into their 51st day. And there's no determination of when to bring Starliner home. They had a NASA press conference yesterday and did not pick a date. They said that Starliner is safe to be parked there for another 45 days. They extended the life of the batteries from 45, that they've proven themselves. I think they're being recharged by the ISS anyway. And they've done some serious tests. They're going to do a hot fire test, I understand, on the thrusters as they're attached to the space station. And check out if they're, what they've been doing for the last almost 2 months, checking out the anomaly of those thrusters, see if they've got an understanding of it. And we'll do a hot fire test one of these days. So stay tuned for that. Until then, Suni and Butch are eating up all the shrimp cocktail, the other astronauts up there probably. But that's okay. We'll get a Crew Dragon up there and resupply everything. Probably in mid-August, I think, is the next one scheduled. So, but we got some breaking news here on the Space Coast. Those doggone noisy Starlink satellites launched by the noisy Falcon 9 rockets are going to be launched soon. And that is a shot by Mr. William Whitey that I pulled off. William, thank you for sharing that with us. Not sure what flight that was, but it looks like that's a Starlink fairing on it. And the Starlink satellites are the global constellation of over, I think he's got 6,000 satellites up there now, he being Elon Musk. So Carlton, we'll be able to take a streak shot like this tonight from our front yard. That's my front yard. I believe the launch is about 12 minutes after 12. I know it's after midnight tonight. They actually had listed a manifest of launching 2 Starlinks tonight, 8 minutes apart, but you knew that wasn't going to happen. So I don't know which pad this one's going off of, 40 or 39A, but tomorrow night after midnight is the other Starlink launch. And then they're poised in Vandenberg to get those satellites up there. So it's a production line for Elon Musk Starlink constellation system, launched into space by the very reliable Falcon 9, which of course was grounded when it had its first anomaly in 325 launches. Excuse me. 325 launches, so it was way overdue. I guess I bored myself here, yawning. No, it's just needing an afternoon cup of coffee, I guess. As I've been busy as can be here at the American Space Museum and happy about it, putting this program together every day as well as other duties. And we're so happy that you all can follow us this way and go to our Facebook page, go to our website, and see more of what's going on. So, Logan, thank you for a good job on the Streamlabs console today. Marty, glad that you're always here. He's going to be here next week and then take a 2-week vacation, but we're going to hear from him because I'm going to keep bugging him to send me pictures on his road trip as he's going up to the Cradle of Aviation in Long Island, Bethpage, Long Island. You grew up in Hicksville, Long Island, right?
3 miles from Bethpage, but the cradle's in Garden City.
Oh, the cradle's in where?
Garden City.
Garden City. Okay.
Not far.
Well, so we'll have some special times with Marty tomorrow, next week. I mean, until he takes 2 weeks off. Well deserved. And Logan, don't get sick, okay? Because I'm going to need you, buddy, while he's there. So anyway, we appreciate everybody having a great week with us. Hope that you get out there and enjoy some summertime. The dog days of summer are upon us. I did a program on that you can see on YouTube, and hope that you do go back and see some of the legends of the space age that we've interviewed, the space workers and a few astronauts. So until next time, I'm Marquette saying thank you for watching, and also saying I can't wait to see you in our museum to bridge the space between us.